Mehr Licht, more light. Here we are in the Lichtung, um, trying to understand Heidegger well. We're all trying to understand Heidegger more well. So, in the Lichtung, which we've absconded out of the nothingness to, or perhaps out of Artemis's forest into the Apollonian light, which is itself, not to confuse us too much, but which is itself probably something like what Aristotle called what the eyes of a bat see. The eyes of a bat can't hope to see being directly because they're made for seeing in the darkness, which is what our ordinary vision beholds. So I'm going to try to read a passage from, or just the first paragraph of the Grunbegriffe of Heidegger, which is translated as basic concepts, but we have to say something about that translation. First, one reflection on our situation of not knowing where we are in the Lichtung, in the clearing, the light breaking out in a flash from the forest when you step into a clearing. So Hubert Dreyfus says that he always uses, in a way, the crutch of Descartes to define Heidegger. And he says that Heidegger denies that we're ever in a position to doubt of being in the way that Descartes does with his ultimate doubt. And because we're always amidst it as Dasein. There's another problem with Descartes. I don't know if that's, I can't see if that's actually cogent the way Dreyfus sets it up. I don't find that immediately cogent. It's not only that we can doubt, I suppose the meaning of it is as follows. We can ask whether this is a dream, as was asked in ancient times in Plato's Theaetetus. We can ask, is this a dream, or is it what we usually take it to be, the world of daily life? And thereby there's a hidden presupposition, which is that we take a dream to be something real, and we take daily life to be something different but real. And I think also, if you read the Timaeus, where there's this talk about the different kinds of fire, there's something in there about how there's one fire for a fire that reminds of the kind of things Heraclitus is talking about, the kindling of a light in the night, which may refer to dreams. By the way, there's a good lecture on that, very thoughtful lecture on that by Gadamer, which you can get on YouTube, on Heraclitus and the interpretation of Heraclitus. And so let's start with this first paragraph. The first comment I make about the title in the translation is that Grunbegriffe being translated as concepts in the English tradition and philosophy. Now, of course, it depends on which philosophers you're going to, and often concepts itself, the further you go back, it will be a translation of something in Latin from, especially when you go back to the theologians. But concept generally is taken in the English-speaking world to mean a generality and a kind of abstract generality. It lacks the directness of what Plato is talking about, where if Plato speaks of a bench, he really means a bench, and then you can use your reason to say, if I have something before me and I can't sit down on it, it could be a broken bench, a defective bench, but then you really know there's a palpable tangibility to what it means to investigate the so-called idea. The idea is just what's become species or other similar terms in biological taxonomy today, but it could also be used for anything whatsoever, any being whatsoever. But when you investigate something and it's an eidos or an idea, it's not just an activity in the mind, but something that's broken down and you can't sit on. You really can say this is a defective bench, right? And the bench is a particular eidos or particular species. So concept, but when you talk about the concept, you get more into the bare intelligibility and a kind of something more like sophistry, more like, I think Zizek uses a lot of this tricks of clever intelligibility, which makes him more on the side of a virtuoso of cleverness than of a real investigator of being. But I don't stop to give examples at this moment. So Grunbegriffe could be translated as first principles or ground principles. Grund means reason in German. It means also ground. You can take it to mean several things. If I speak of, do you have reasons for something, I can also say, do you have grounds for that? So Grunbegriffe. Begriffe is translated sometimes as concept, but it also means gripping, grasping, but taking hand on. So it could also be, so keep in mind that the talk of concepts here, basic concepts for Grunbegriffe it's misleading us because it's too abstract, I think. Basic is all right, but even basic basic seems to fit what he's talking about in the text, but it's not an exact fit there. Okay, so let's just read the first paragraph, and again, we're trying to understand, perhaps we're trying to understand Heidegger well, to improve our understanding through the investigation as we go through, and perhaps we're trying to do what Heidegger says is possible with philosophy, which is to speak to Heidegger and to listen to him answer back to us. Okay, so introduction. Oh, I'm on the introduction. Let's see. The internal, there's in big type up above, there's a header that says the internal connection between Grund/being/inception. Then there's section 1, elucidation of the title of the lecture, Basic Concepts. Basic concepts are ground concepts. Should we go on reading this text directly as concepts, or should we say basic ideas? Maybe basic ideas is better. That goes over with, Husserl has this ideas 1 text. So let's say, quote unquote, basic ideas slash of what? So I'm beginning the first paragraph. The title of this lecture does not say. Hence, what is supposed to be grasped. See, he's saying what is supposed to be grasped because griffe really means grasping. What is, so there's some plays on language here. Plato, anybody who knows Plato well knows that Plato is constantly making plays on words, including in the Phaedrus, where he speaks about people reclining under a Platon tree, which is, I think, what they call an English elm tree, or maybe a sycamore is the same as a Platon tree. But in any case, hence what is supposed to be grasped by these concepts remains unclear. Quote unquote concepts are said to be representations or Stellung, which is something that plays, so quote unquote ideas are said to be representations or Stellung, which is something that plays big in Kant, of course, in which, and in German idealism in general, in which we bring before ourselves an object or entire region of objects in general. So this is part of why I understand Kant as the philosophy of Überhaupt, because Überhaupt means taking everything in general. All beings become representations, and the representations are part of this world picture, the Weltbild, and they are thought in a way that's right on the threshold of the historical thinking, a way that German idealism opens up and that we're confused amidst as we try to understand Heidegger well enough to go beyond the way that, say, the great sophist, as they call him, Zizek, although he is worth listening to in many respects, and someone much less worth listening to, Graham Harman, seem to have not understand Heidegger to have outstripped this German idealism. They're still stuck on these problems of German idealism. They still don't come into the Lichtung. Perhaps we don't either. We're not grasping it properly yet. Such regions are natural. History, quote unquote, the state, quote unquote, the law, humanity, animal, or whatever else. However, in the lecture's title, there is no talk of the basic ideas of nature, of art, and other regions. The title does not, in a way, we could say, instead of basic ideas, we could say theoi, or gods, because when we're talking about something like nature as a whole, or the state as a whole, or law, humanity, animal in general, rather than a squirrel or bird, we speak of things that could only be represented in some abstract way. And then what Plato tried to do is take these gods, as it were, and turn them into the ideas which could be brought into the region of speech, and through the dialogic discussion grasped. So, however, in the lecture's title, there is no talk of the basic ideas of nature, of art, and other regions. The title does not specify anything of the kind for which the basic ideas are supposed to be such basic ideas. Whether for the investigation of art history, of jurisprudence, of chemistry, or mechanical engineering, or for other subject, quote-unquote, subject area or field of human practice, perhaps the unsupplemented title basic ideas means this, that it does not treat of particular regions of beings, nor of the corresponding sciences that investigate them individually. So in a certain sense, we're going beyond all genuses, which makes a good deal of sense when you think about that, what happened with Kant in that respect in his investigations, where he came to the realization that being, as it was being understood as a super genus, didn't make sense to understand it that way. Then later Kant himself was overthrown, because it turned out you could see that the same criticism applied to Das Sollen, or the Ot, which is the center of the Kantian morality, that there's a super genus called the Ot, and that we can plug into it spontaneously and overcome any positive justice, but take justice from within our being. Okay, so let's stop there for the moment.